Hey fellow gliders, welcome back. This is Robert Petito, and today we're going to continue on with our series of Glide AI. If you missed the last video, there'll be a link in the description below. But in this video, we're going to carry on and talk specifically about Glide's newest feature of Glide AI, which is the document to text extraction, where you can feed it a PDF and then be able to capture all of the text that was inside of that PDF. And today we're actually going to take a look at how to use that in tandem with JSON in order to make sense of that text and then be able to leverage it throughout of our app. We're going to take a look at a couple of use cases. The first use case is being able to upload resumes and be able to extract data from the resumes in a consistent way. The other way is taking a look at PDFs of spec sheets and being able to query those spec sheets and create FAQs based upon those spec sheets. So that way you can see key data at a glance. The timestamps for each of those use cases will be in the description below, so if you wanted to fast forward to either of those, you can do that now. All right, so I'm excited to get started. Let's take a look. So at the top of any of your team folders, you're going to see this banner for Glide AI, talking a little bit more about what it is and how you can leverage it. Note that Glide AI is still in beta, and it is for pro level tiers and above. And the feature that I'm going to be talking about today, the document to text extraction, is specifically for business tiers and above. But I just wanted to show you a little bit more about it and how you can leverage it in your apps. All right, so I'm going to go to one of my team folders here, and I'm going to visit an app that I just created. Inside of this app, I haven't created anything yet. The front end doesn't exist. And on the back end here, we have my two use cases, my resumes and then my products. Let's start with the resumes. So here I have a couple of files that were uploaded, let's say, to my database. And now I want to extract data from these resumes so that way I can organize it on the front end. Now, the tricky thing is that as people are uploading their resumes, data is formatted in different ways. It might have different sections or subsections placed in different areas, and you're not going to get a consistent layout from user to user when they go to upload their resumes. So the trick here is to use AI to extract all of the text and then create a prompt that asks that to structure the text in a specific way. And the best way to structure text so that a computer and a human can both read it is in JSON. So let's go ahead and see what we can do here. So the first thing is to add a Glide AI column. It's going to be our document to text extraction. So I'm going to go add a new column. And we're going to call this extract text. The type is going to be AI, and then document to text. Okay, we're going to point our document to a PDF. Note, these are the specific files that it could recognize at the moment. We have PDF, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and HTML. So we do have these in PDF format. So I'm going to go ahead and select my files and then just sit back and wait for the extract text to work. All right, so I already have a couple of hits, and we see that already here the data is formatted differently, right? With this extract text on the first line, we have our email followed by a phone number, followed by an address, and then soft skills. Whereas here we have a name followed by a description, followed by work experience, right? So the data here between the two files are not in any consistent order. But what we can do is leverage another Glide AI column in order to organize this text in a way that we choose. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new text here, and I'm going to say text as JSON. And if you're not familiar with JSON, it stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's just a way to organize data, and it organizes it into key value pairs. So for example, the key being email and the value being the actual email address. So let's see an example of this. So for type here, I'm going to do AI and then generate text. Now, while I'm changing my instructions here, I don't want my text file to keep running. So I'm going to actually make my input custom for now while I'm fashioning my instructions. That way, this generate text doesn't keep running in the background as I'm changing the instructions. All right, so the instructions are, here is a resume, right? Format it in JSON. Here is the structure. Or we could even say in JSON, with this structure. Okay, colon. And now I can feed it the structure that I want. So with JSON, you always start with a curly bracket. And then I want to come up with how I want my resume to be formatted consistently. So maybe we start with the name, and I don't have to do the full JSON formatting. I can just do a list of the keys of the key value pair, and it'll know what it is that I'm trying to do. So maybe I want to start with their name, followed by their email, followed by their phone, followed by a summary, followed by their work experience. So I could do work experience. And the work experience might be a few values. So the work experience is going to be an array, and we designate an array using square brackets. So I have an open and a closed square bracket. And then within inside of that array, I want to organize it by maybe location, date, range, and then description. All right, in their resume, they might also have education. So I'm going to do that exact same thing. So I'll say education. And the education might be the location, the date range, and a description. Maybe before work experience, I'll say skills. What else might be on a resume? References, possibly. But I think that's good for now, just for a proof of concept. All right, and then I end with a curly bracket. All right, so this looks kind of strange. And believe it or not, even though we're combining words here, AI is smart enough to try to figure out what it is that we're looking for. If you wanted to, you could also use underscores to separate words. So like date underscore range might also be a thing, right? Not necessary, but it's possible. Okay, and then for the input, now I'm going to feed it the file, feed it the extract text, and then hit save, and then watch. So even though these two are formatted in completely different formats, once the text as JSON runs, we should see that both blocks of text now have identical formatting in the structure that we specified. All right, so let's take a look. So we have name, email, phone, summary, their skills, organized by soft skills and hard skills. Here they had languages as well. Their work experience with location, date range, and descriptions. And their education also with location, date range, and description. Okay, so it was in that order, exactly as I specified it. And now in the second one, we see the exact same thing. Name, email, phone, summary, skills. The skills here are formatted differently than in the extract in the previous resume we took a look at, but that's okay. It's just that we have the exact same format. Now here we have technical versus soft skills. We're having before we had soft and hard skills. If I wanted to be more specific, I could. But work experience, we see location, date range, description. So now that I'm thinking about it, maybe we want to have technical, soft skills as our format. So with inside of skills, right, maybe we'll do an array since it was trying to create one anyway. And then we'll say technical skills versus soft skills. And then it'll reformat that text. And then instead of it saying technical and soft for the one and then hard and soft for the other, now both should say technical soft. So here we have skills, technical, soft. And then this one we see school or skills, technical, soft. So again, using AI to craft and format the text is extremely important. And now that we have this text as JSON, now we can use Glide's Query JSON columns to pick out the pieces that we want so we can display it on the front end. All right, so now that I have all of this data formatted in JSON, I can put my AI aside and now use Query JSON columns to pick out all of the individual features that I want. Yes, if I wanted to, I could certainly use AI and do generate text and have it look at the extract text or the text as JSON and give it a prompt that says like find the name and output the name. You could do that, but note that the generate text uses an update every single time it runs. But now that our text is formatted as JSON, we don't need to do AI anymore. Now we can use the Query JSON columns to pick out all of the values that we want from that JSON object. All right, so I'm going to select Query JSON. And maybe the first thing I want to select is the name of our applicant. Okay, the JSON we're going to point to here is the text as JSON. Okay, and now we see that we have our JSON object over here on the right. And now we can pick out values from this JSON. Now it's asking for a query here with inside of our JSON. The JSON or the Query JSON column is leveraging JSONata, JSON then ATA. If you're not familiar with JSONata, you can do a quick Google search, and on their website they tell you all the different types of queries that you can run. One thing that I typically do is just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, create a JSONata query for me that extracts the name from this JSON object, and it will just fine too. So if I wanted to, I could use some JSONata queries and type the word name here to extract the name, which is already pretty magical. But Glide prides themselves at being no code. So you don't even have to know JSONata in order to extract values from within inside of your JSON object. Now what you can do here is point the Query JSON column to your JSON object and then use the triple dots over here. And you can now select the different elements of your JSON object without writing a single query or line of code. So if I want the name, I can pick the name just like this. And note that it will override any sort of query I have with this drop-down value. Okay, so save. All right, so there's the name. Now I can duplicate this. Instead of the name, I'll grab the email. All right, duplicate. And let's call this phone, where I'll grab the phone, and so forth. All right. And so now we can have an extraction of all of our skills. So we can duplicate this. And let's grab all of the skills, all the technical skills, right? So these are technical skills. You see that they're still organized in an array of value here. So if I wanted to, I could still continue to output those. And if I wanted to, I could do work experience. Same thing. I can choose my work experience, and then I can pick a specific work experience, or I can do just all of the work experience and hit save. Okay, and this is formatted as JSON still, right? And this might not look very pretty on the front end. Glide doesn't have a way yet of converting this JSON array into individual line items. So what we might want to do here is use some JSONata queries to format it a certain way, or we could actually use a Glide AI column, generate text here, and we'll call it work experience display. And the instructions are, here's JSON of work experience, output as markdown. So I'll input it as work experience. And then the markdown version of this now looks like this, where we have the header followed by the values followed by the achievements. Right? And so now if I were to display this, it would look pretty on the front end. So you can use this combination of JSON and AI to craft the perfect layout based upon this irregular file here. All right, so you get the idea with this portion of it. So now if I were to actually try to display this in my app, I'm going to create a screen, And I'm going to get rid of this screen for now. Let's add a screen based off of our resumes. So here's a list of our resumes. And here's a list of our people, let's say. We could dive in. And now we can display the name of our person. And now let's grab their contact information. Glide has a component for that. Right, here's the contact. So we're going to call their phone number, where the phone number is their phone. Maybe we want to text their phone. And we're going to email the email. Right? And for the text here, maybe we show their email and maybe show their phone like this. Right? And then for that work experience where we had it formatted in Markdown, we can display that using some rich text. So I say rich text, and I'll select their work experience display. And then it looks kind of pretty like this. Right? So again, using a combination of JSON and Markdown, we can take a file and now get some consistent layout based upon this. So this was Zach's. This was Desiree's. Now, if we want, we can even go one step further and we can actually score these resumes based off of a job posting. So I'm going to go ahead and upload a job posting. Here's a file here. One little trick that you can do here, if you wanted to upload a file directly to the Glide data editor, there's no way to do that in here, except if you were to format the column as an image column of all things, right? Now I can upload a file. So it says here to select files to upload. If you were to click and try to pick something, you're not gonna be able to pick PDFs, but it will let you drag and drop. Grab this job posting and drag it in. And you're not gonna be able to see it in here until you switch it back to text, like that. So that's a little trick of being able to upload something directly to the data editor. All right, so then from here, what we can do is we can do a document extraction. So we're gonna say extract text. And again, AI, document to text. Document is gonna be our file. While that's running, I'm gonna craft our JSON. So AI, generate text. We're gonna say as JSON. Again, leave that blank while I'm creating my instructions. And we're gonna say, here is a job posting. Output as JSON in this format. And we want the title or the position, a brief summary, the requirements, and qualifications. Okay, so input, let's start the extract text, hit save. And we should get some nice JSON with the position, IT application manager, the brief summary, the requirements, and the qualifications. Okay, and so now what we can do is we can feed this value to our resume. So let's say someone is applying for a certain position, right? Maybe all of our job postings for this app is for this one position, let's say. So what we can do is we can bring this value into our resumes. Otherwise, we'd have to build a separate sheet in order to compare things. But we're going to call, just to keep things simple, we're going to call this position JSON. I'm going to bring it in using a single value column. So single value. And I'm going to grab the first, which is the only value from our job posting as JSON. All right, so we have the position as JSON. We have their resume as JSON. And so now what we can do is create a prompt to compare the two. So I'm going to call this comparison prompt. Use a template column to craft that. So here's a resume. Here is an open position, followed by 2. Determine whether this applicant should be considered for the job. Rank them 1, 2, or 3. 1, actually let's say 0. 0, 1, 2, or 3. 0 equals not a good fit. 3 equals the very best fit. Output as JSON, because again, if you want a consistent format of something, always output it as JSON. So output it as JSON in this format. And so we're going to say score and then rationale like this. Okay. So we're going to add 2 replacements. Oh, I guess we can't use numbers here because I'm selecting numbers here. So we'll say, here's a resume. We'll use the @ sign, and over here we'll use the % sign. Just something to replace it by, some variables. Usually I use numbers, but I can't use numbers in the template at the same time. Okay, so @ is the resume, which is the text as JSON. % is our position as JSON. So our complete prompt looks like this. And hopefully our output is a score and a rationale. And if we did this correctly, Zach, which has very little IT experience, and Desiree, who has a decent amount of IT experience, Zach would have a lower score than Desiree. All right, so let's see what we can do here. AI, generate text. And we're going to call this score JSON. Input is going to be our comparison prompt. And we don't need any instructions because the instructions are inside of the prompt. We hit save. Here we go. So score 0, which is accurate. The applicant's not a good fit for the applicant because their skills and work experience are not aligned. I would completely agree with that. Whereas here we have a 2. All right, so now we have a score and a rationale for each of our employees. And again, if we were trying to match these applicants up to different types of job positions, then we'd have to have some sort of third table where we have where we're submitting the position and submitting the applicant, and then do the AI in that third table. Now, this column is still in JSON format, so we have to use Query JSON to pull out those values so we can actually display it in a cohesive way. So we could do our score, and again we're going to do our Query JSON, and we're going to pull from our score JSON the score, and then we'll duplicate this and call this rationale. And so now we get the plain text of those things. Okay. All right, so then back on our application page, we can display it however we want. Maybe it's big numbers, where we have our score. Our value is the score, and the description is the rationale. Something like this. All right. So again, using this combination of JSON and AI, you can start with seemingly nothing and craft a consistent experience across both sides. All right, let's switch gears. We're going to do one more use case here, and this is a list of products. So here I have 4 PDFs of different types of respirator masks. Maybe that's the field that I work in. And I, as the business owner, want to create an FAQ based off of each product. That way users who are visiting my app can select a product and easily see a list of maybe the top 5 frequently asked questions maybe about this particular product. All right, so same setup. We have our file. We're first going to go ahead and extract to text. So I'll say extract text. The integrations here, AI document to text. Choose our file. So now that we have our text, we're going to go ahead and format this as JSON. So again, I'm going to use an AI column, generate text. We're going to call this as JSON, but specifically through the lens of an FAQ. So the instructions are, here is a product spec sheet. Create an FAQ in JSON format with the following structure. Okay, and with this structure, since I want it to be an FAQ, I want there to be a question and I want there to be an answer, right? So we're going to do a curly bracket followed by a list of FAQ, where the FAQ contains both a question and an answer. We're going to put that inside of square brackets. Maybe we want to have a consistent first 3 or 4 or 5 questions. The following structure, okay, fine. Create an FAQ with these 5, oh yeah, input, let's clear that. With these 5 questions, put in parentheses. Let's call this key features, materials, uses, non-uses, other in JSON format. So it should create 5 questions. Features, materials, uses, non-uses, other in this format FAQ. Let's see what it does. Go ahead and select the extract text, hit save. Let's see if we get 5 questions per product. All right, what are the key features? What are the materials used? What are the uses? What are the non-uses? Is there any additional information? Key features, materials, intended use, not be used for, additional details. So again, we get a consistent feel. And what's nice is that these are, they vary enough so that it doesn't look like AI wrote it. All right, so we have the format that we want, but now how are we going to display this FAQ? So one way to do this would be to convert this into something more readable. Let's say like an HTML table, let's say. To do that, we could go ahead and create a new FAQ as a table. And this will be AI generate text. And we're going to say convert this JSON to a HTML table with inline CSS that makes the table, or inline CSS with 100% width. So our input will be our JSON FAQ. We hit save, and we should see that this gets converted to some sort of table-like structure in HTML. All right, so while that's rendering, I'm going to go ahead and create our navigation here. Let's create a new tab, screen from data, products. So here's our list of products. Right, we might want to extract the name of the file at some point here. So we could use a rich text component, and we can point the rich text to our table. There we go. So now we have our table of question and answer. Okay, that's one way to do it. But again, our text is kind of squeezed. Usually with FAQ section, you have like this kind of drop down experience where you can toggle things to see the answer. So maybe we can adjust our HTML to be a little more interactive. So instead of the FAQ as a table, I'm going to duplicate this, and we're going to say FAQ as toggles. And we're going to say convert this JSON to HTML. Using the details summary tags where the summary is the question followed by the answer within the details. Let's see if it knows what I'm trying to do here. So we should have it listed by detail, summary is the question, then the answer, followed by the end details tag. It knows. Look at that. That's fantastic. So now we have details, summary with the question, followed by the answer, details. And then we have the next one. And if you display this, this should work. Look at that. So now we have these interactive toggles. So that's a little bit better, right? Maybe these should be headers. So we could say the summary is a question with H3 styling. Let's see if it knows to make those a header. Wait for it. Look at that, better. So that's one way to do it. So that's kind of a cooler FAQ. All right, the last way to go about doing this is using some trickery with Glide, where you're not even crafting this HTML anymore, but rather you're just leveraging this JSON and bringing it into an FAQ table where then you can parse out those FAQ products one piece at a time. Now, what I'm about to show you here warrants its own video. So I'll try to be as clear as possible. But what we need to have happen is that when they visit the FAQ table of a particular product, that it references the product's row dynamically. So that way this table is populated dynamically. All right, so here's how I think this might work. So the first thing we have to do is add a row ID to our products table. So I'm going to come over here and add a row ID, which gives us the row ID for that record. Next, we want to be able to reference this row ID whenever we're viewing the FAQ page. We can do that dynamically because in Glide, whenever you visit any screen, it's going to pull the row ID as the very last path name of the URL, which means it's part of the URL www.whatever, right? That very last value is the row ID of the screen that you're on, the record that you're on. So we can use that value dynamically in our FAQ section here. To do that, you use the get part of URL column. So I might create a whole video on this at some point, but we're going to call this selected row ID. The type, if I search for URL, it's this get part of URL column. Okay, and the URL that we're going to grab is the URL of the screen that we're currently viewing. Okay, and the part that we're going to get is the path name. All right, I'll hit save. We will have this selected row ID appear, but I think we have to publish our app first in order to make that happen. So I'm going to go ahead and publish. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have to publish first. Okay, so let's visit out, visit in, data. There we go. So you see that we have the row ID here, and the row ID that it's showing up is this 0F3MGH, which lines with this row ID here. So you see that it pulls it dynamically as the user visits that screen. So now that we have our row ID, now we can query our products because this value contains that row ID. So I'm going to go ahead and add a query column. We're going to say query product. Type will be a query column. And we're going to query our products where the row ID is within or is included in our selected row ID, or this row selected row ID. And it should find the only value, which happens to be the value that we're currently viewing. Okay. Now we need just that, just the JSON from this value. So we can pull that using a single value. So we're going to say JSON. Type will be a single value column. And we're going to get the first from our query. And we're going to get the as JSON FAQ. Okay. So now we have the array of questions and answers that are pulled from this row ID. All right, so the last thing here, in order to get the questions and answers into their own respective value, is we have to reference this index. So you might have seen that I've already have this index column waiting to go. So I only have 5 FAQ questions. So I have 5 rows, starting with 0, ending with 4, because that's how arrays work. You have to start with 0 being the first position of an array. All right, so then from here, what I'm going to do is create a JSON query that pulls this this value, the 0th, the 1st, the 2nd, and so forth. So I have to create a JSON query for that particular item. We can do that with a template. So we're going to say JSON query. Type will be a template column. And based upon the format that I chose, it's going to be the FAQ followed by the number. In this case, I'll just say 0. But 0 is actually the index. Okay, so we see that the end result looks like this, 0 through 4. Save. Okay, and then from here, I can use a Query JSON column to extract that value. So I'm going to add a column to the right, and we're going to call this parsed JSON. Type, again, is a Query JSON column. And we're going to choose our JSON query. Sorry, we're going to choose the JSON and then select our JSON query. Save. And so now we see that each line has its own question. And now from here, this is very easy. We have a question and an answer. And so we can do a more parsed JSON. So I'm going to duplicate this. It'll be a Query JSON column. I'll say question. The JSON here is our parsed JSON now. And now I can choose the question. So there's our question. And I can duplicate this, call it answer. Here's our question. There's our answer on their own rows dynamically using this selected row ID from the get part of URL. All right, so now we just have to display it. So instead of this HTML table, let's say, right, now what we can do is maybe when they click on an item, let's actually give it a title because this is looking a little funny. So let's create another AI column here, do generate text, and let's say extract the product name from our extract text. There we go. So this is name, product name, perfect. So let's use that now as our collection. Okay, no image. And so now maybe when they click on an item, the FAQ pops up. Now displaying an FAQ, what I like to use is the custom collection because it actually separates each item in their own little card. So I'm going to choose a custom collection. I'm going to change our custom collection to be a full width. And I'm going to select as the source the FAQ table. Because remember, our FAQ table is being generated dynamically based upon the screen that we're on, right? Our data here, it knows the row ID and so forth. So I'm going to choose full, source, FAQ. Okay. We're going to turn off search. We're not going to add or edit. And now we get to display what we want to display here. So the text here could be our question, like that. So here's our question. And if we don't want a headline, if we want it to be, something that looks like this, we could. And then when we click on this, we want to show the answer. So under custom collection, actions, item click, we want to show the detail screen, but maybe we want to show it as a pop-up. So that could be either a slide in or an overlay. Let's do slide in, right? And if I click on one of the items here, we get this little slide in, and we're still within the same screen here. So we don't need breadcrumbs. Maybe the title is the question, right? And then we just have the answer. We could display it however we want, maybe as a container. And inside the container, we have our answer using some text, something kind of simple, like that, right? You can play around with this feature here. But now each of these have their own answer. And again, this is just so you can see how this is dynamic. Right now we're on the 3M particle respirator, and each of the questions refers to that. And then if I go to a different one, this 8210 N95, again, all the questions are referencing 82 and 95. So is Glide AI powerful or what? As if there's anything you're going to take away from this video, it's just that you can leverage Glide AI to not only generate text, but format it in any specific way you want. And if you choose to format it as JSON, you can use a series of Query JSON columns to actually pick out and extract specific values from within inside of that generated text. If you have any questions at all about how I leverage Glide AI or Query JSON in my apps, feel free to leave me a comment below. You can also reach out to me at Twitter at @rpetito. And as always, thanks for watching.